Okay, today's an interesting daf. It's not something that's common. It's a tuma. What? It's on Samech Gimel on the base at the bottom. It's called tumas safa. Tumas safa. If you have a piece of tumah that's floating on the water, or it could not even lav dafka, and the water could be moving, right? And it's a suffix whether it touched the person or not. Again, the whole halacha of tumas safa is stated regarding maga, tumas maga. We know there's different tumas. There's maga, there's masa, there's oil, there's this. But it's only shilas regarding tumas maga. We will say this big chiddush of what we call tumas safa. So let's begin on Samich Gimel Amid Beis. Ketzad Yarad. We said the Mishnah said that Yarad, if a person goes down to be toivel for his tumas sheretz and his nimtzit is a mace that's floating on the water, it'll be tamei. It'll be tamei. Okay, says on that safa eina mitamor linyan sheretz. When it comes to a sheretz, it's not tamei. The Tanya suffix tuma safa bein bekalim bein bekarka tahira. Right, whether the object was floating in a kli or floating in karka, it would be what? It would be tahar. That's tumas safa, and we'll see it's a pasuk. However, Rav Shimon bekalim tameya bekarka tahira. Rav Shimon is of the opinion by kalim it will be tamei, by karka not. Tanakama says whether it's floating on a kli or it's floating in karka, let's say in both ways, it will be wide, it'll be tahar. Rav Shimon makes the chilik, says by kalim it'll be tamei, by karka it will be tahar. Okay. So let's see Taisvis. Safa in a metamalinian sheretz. The last Taisvis on the page. The Tanya suffix tumal bein bekalim. Now, sheish mayim bekli. You have mayim bekli. The sheretz safa pnei mayim. So we're not dealing with a piece of mace floating, guys. We're dealing with a piece of sheretz. One of the shmona shratzim that's obviously dead and it's floating on the water. Suffix naga bekli. Suffix loy naga. Oy bekarka b'mayim shal gab. Oy bekarka b'mayim shal gab bekarka. Shimon bekli tamei bekarka tahar. Now vaday naga tamei b'chamakim. Shu sharetz. Suffix naga dafka ala aretz. Tamei imhi tamei b'shusay hayachid. Aval tzafa shena kavua leim safkali. Now this is very fascinating halacha, guys. Why do we have halacha? Suffix tuma b'shus harabim sveika is tahar. Suffix tum b'shus hayachid sveika tamei. So this guy is in a b'shus hayachid. He's in a b'shus hayachid. Goes to the mikvah and he finds a sheretz floating in the water of the mikvah. And the shayla is whether he's tamei or not, whether he touched it or not. Using our rule of thumb of suffix that we learned from Saita, that suffix tumah b'shus hayachid sveikei tamei, I would say it's tamei. Yeah, I would say it's tamei. Says the Gemara a huge chiddush. What's the chiddush? Tumas safa by a sheretz. We don't say suffix tumah b'shus hayachid sveikei tamei. That's the chiddush of tumas safa. Now, to what extent do we say it? Do we say it at the venue, whether it's the person was in a kli or it was in a karka? So that's a machlokes. But such an animal, excuse the words, exists. Such a bug, such a rodent exists, right? So continues Taisvis. Right? So now this is dafka b'al haaretz. We say it. Avot safa sheina kavua, but safa that's not kavua. It's. If it's kavua, guys, if the tum is kavua, it's in a set place, we're going to apply the din wad of suffix tumah b'shus hayachid sveikei tamei. Guys, that's the hagdara over here. Hagdara. If the tumah is kavua, if it's set in one place, the way we barvan the suffix is what? Suffix tumah b'shus hayachid sveikei tamei. That's what we learn from Saita. Aval safa sheina kavua loy. The mesafkalon idafka panei amayim etarinoin. Who didn't suffer ba'avir? Shezarekes odam ba'avir mitariran mimiuta da ala aretz. In other words, the guys, the Taisus runs a shaila. When we say something that's not kavua, doesn't mean only in the water. Whether it's flying through the air and it's mesupik whether it hit the guy or not. It's not kavua. It's not kavua. So let's give back Dora. Guys, look at me. I mean, you remember this the rest of your lives. Look at you're dealing with sveikas, right? How do you go ahead and answer sveikas? They arise all the time. So we go after Roiv, we go after Chazaka, and usually when a person has a Cheskas Taira, we'll keep him in the Cheskas Taira, right? A person has a Cheskas Taira, we'll keep him in the Cheskas Taira. So therefore, if a woman is behind closed door with a man, Kinoi Stira, without the whole parsha of Saita, she has a Cheskas Taira, she'd be Tahar. She'd be Tahar, she'd be mutter to her husband. Unless you had Adam that she did something, she'd be mutter to her husband. Why? The Chazaka, she has Cheskas Taira. This guy is Tahar. Let's say he's going to the mikveh, he's Tahar, he's not Tameh. It's important. He's Tahar. He's going to the mikveh. Now it arises a suffix. Using the halachas of Chazaka, he should be Tahar. But we learn from Saita Yuch Chiddush, right? What is Yuch Chiddush? When the two people, like him and her, right? And that's Rishus HaYachid, because three people already, Rishus HaRabim, Le'inyan this din, come Saita and tells us, what? Guess what? You're Tameh. Al Safik, you're Tameh. You're Tameh. Comes along now, but Rabbi Stein, you drive me nuts. You just told me you're Tahar. Now you tell me you're Tameh. Now you tell me you're Tahar again. Comes along with Chiddush. What's the Chiddush? Tumas Tzafa. Tumas Tzafa. That we don't apply this din of what? Of Safi Tumah B'Shus HaYachid Sveikei Tameh. We're going to say that what? That the person's Tahar. Now, do we say it when? By a sheretz. We don't say it by mace. The Lashon of the Gemara, guys, right? Safa in a matama linyan sheretz. Safa, if it's floating, it's not matama linyan sheretz. If it's a sheretz that's floating. Now, says the Tanakam, whether it's floating in mayim or it's floating in karka, either way, it will we'll say to Safa. Says Rosh Hashanah, no, only karka, but not the kli. By kli, we'll say that what it is, tamei. The kli will say it's tamei, okay?
Something is that whether he touched the sheriff.
But the sheriff touched, or the church touched him, it doesn't make a difference.
So must be appropriate a large clear. So I mean, like, I'm trying to get to Matthias.
A swimming pool. I'm saying something that a kli, or the sheriff was in the kli and his hand was in the kli for a minute. He didn't have to be immersed in the kli. It could be one body part in the kli. He doesn't, right? You put his hand in the kli, found the sheriff's floating in the kli. Good. He doesn't know. He doesn't have to. Good. Yeah, that makes it easier, right? Okay. Good. So now says the Gemara the following: my time with the Tanakama. What is the reason for what? What's the reason for this concept of Tumas Safa? Right? You never heard until tonight, right? Because these are one of the Masechtas. When you see people die, they never take this Masechta. You know, the list. You ever see the Tyrus list? This is up there, this is one of the ones they don't pick, right? So my time at Tanakama. Where do you know that Tumas Safa is tar? Where do you know such an animal? So I'm going to be the pasuk says, I'm giving you the whole pasuk. Do not make yourself disgusted, right? Don't become tummy in them. In Mason Bum. Now, when it says Hasheretz Hashoretz, it's mashma that what? When it says Hasheretz, the rodent, whatever, one of the 8 things that shoretz, that swarms, that crawls along, it's mashma any place, even when it's in the water. It doesn't make a difference where you find it, correct? Sheretz Hashoretz, wherever it is. Ukasiv, then it says, however, it says, and now it says what? It was haroimis alo aretz. So you have a stira. Well, one place you tell me b'chol makom, any place, and then you say dafka alo aretz. Haketzad. How do you go ahead? What? No, it's 2 different psukim. It's 2 different psukim. One is mem gimel, one is mem dalet.
One is a cloud, and the other one prat.
No, we're learning with again. You could be learning that, but we're not discussing that word. We're discussing sheretz or sheretz. Kol Prat would say what's considered a sheretz. That it could be some type of limit from that, but we're not focusing on that word now. We're focused on the word. Which word? We're focusing sheretz as sheretz, and then the one limits it ala aretz, right? So what does it mean? What does it mean? Okay, tzad vadai mago vadai if he touches the tamei, right? When he touches it, vadai is tamei, even when it's in the mayim, even when it's not ala aretz. But suffik magohu then tahor. When is that? When it's not ala aretz. Okay, when the suffix, right? The suffix will tell me The second pasuk al oretz. When is a suffix tamei al oretz? But a suffix in mayim will be what? Will be tahar. That's the limit of the Tanakama. Mashma, no matter where the mayim is, whether the mayim is in a kli, whether the mayim is in the oretz, he doesn't make a distinction whether it's in the karka. He doesn't make a distinction whether it's in the kli. Once you tell me al oretz is vaday, al suffix, meaning it's then by mayim it will be tahar. Now, what about if Shimon makes a distinction between kli and karka? By kli saying it's tamei karka tahar. My time, Ulo, the pasuk says, this is pasuk Lamed Vav in Perikid Aleph. Ach ma'ayon ubar mikvei mayim yeh tahar. Mayon is a spring, a bar, a gathering of water. Yeh tahar. Right. It's mashma. If you find a sheretz in a mayon, it's tahar and it's not matame. And then it says in the continuation of the pasuk, "V'nagea b'nivlasam yitma," and anyone who touches their dead body, niflasam, will be tamei. So how do you reconciliate what the first part that's mashma tahar and the second part's tamei? Right? How do you reconciliate the two? The first part's mashma tahar and the second one that's mashma tamei. How do you put those two together? Okay, tzad safa b'kelim. If it's safa b'kelim, then when it says v'nagea b'nivlasam yitma, it's speaking what? A tumah that is safa and a kli. Bekarka tahar, the beginning of the pasuk when it says mamish, guys, ach mayonu bor mikvei mayim. So it's mashma discussing mikvei mayim, yeh tahar, that if you find it soft in a karka, in a mayon, in a bar, which is karka, it's tahar. Okay, so those are that's tumas safa, and that's what we have to. Okay, so guys, let's just recap. Okay, we have a sheretz, it's floating in water. It's floating in water, and you're suffix whether the guy touched it. Normally we say suffix tumah b'shus hayachid sveikai tamei. Over here we mechadish a new din, something called tumas safa. Tumas safa will say it's tahar. Where that's machloikis exactly where, says the Tanakama, no matter where, whether it's in a kli or in a karka, says Rabbi Shimon, no, says of Shimon dafka ach ma'ayonu mikvei bar is it tahar, but calling the game in vlasam in a kli it will be tamei. That's tumas safa. That's all we have so far. Okay, good. Says the Gemara Vaita. Tanabanan. Kol hanitalim, anything that is taken in a person's hands, b'hanigrorin, or anything that's slept along, sveikai tamei, b'fnei shu kumunachim. Same case, guys. You have guys in a mikvah, he's in water, and you have a person holding on to the sheretz, and he's moving the sheretz along in the water, but he's holding on to it. We don't say tumas safa over there. We'll say that what? It's kemunach. It's like kavua, and then you're going to apply the halacha of suffix tumah b'shus hayachid sveikai tamei. Got it? If he's holding on to it, the guy is holding on to it. We're going to view it that way. Look at the taisvis, the last line, the second taisvis, the second to last line. Kivin shiyad adam taisvis ba ein kandin tumas safa. Even though it's moving, guys. Even though it's moving, since the person's hand is holding on to it, it's not tumas safa. It's what it is. It's kemunach. Guys, good? It builds up. It's very nice. The hanisrokim and the hanisrokim. If someone goes ahead, what, and throws it, hanisrokim, you're going ahead and you're throwing the sheretz, and now you have a shiloh what, whether when you threw it, right? When you threw it, is it viewed as what if it touched the person or not? Sveikai tamei, right? So it has a din of tumas safa. Chutz min hakazayis min hameis. If someone throws a kazayis min hameis and it's a suffix where it's mal on the person or not, right? V'amala pnei tumah, or the person, in other words, whether the tumah was falling over him or he went over the tumah, then sveika is going to be tamei. Guys, because as I introduced it, tumas safa is only by tumas maga. Once you have tumas what of oil, forget about it. In other words, even if it's moving, let's say, even if it be moving, let's say flying over your head, or you're flying over it, you would be tamei. It's suffix. Safa, you're moving. It doesn't make a difference. Why? Because holding to the safa is by maga, by touching, not by oil. Not by oil. Now, by zav, guys, there's another two dinim. There's called hesed hazav, where the zav moves something without touching it, or tumas mishkav u'moishiv. If a zav is an avatuma, usually if he touches the kli becomes a rishon. If it sits on a bed that has 10 mattresses, they're all ovis atuma. It's a tremendous chumrah of a zav. So we won't say over there tumas safa. Again, because why? Tumas Tuf is only by Maga, it's not by oil, and it's not by what? Mishkav Moshev, and it's not by Hesed. And the way it couches the words, the Mishkav Moshev by Hesed, is a little different. Says the Gemara. Listen to the way it uses the words. Okay. Al Pnei Tuma. Someone is mile on something that's kavu in the mayim. Anything that's metama from above, that's called that's masa and hesed, that you're carrying it without touching it. It's milmaila, or you moved it. Kilamata, or what? Or that's kilamata. The tum is your metama something below you, which is the mishkav or the moshev of Ezav. Lasui Ezav Ezava, we'll say it's tameh, we won't say tumas safa. Guys, good. Now the Gemara will have 7 questions of tumas safa. We're going to have 7 questions of tumas safa. At the end of the day, we're going to say Teiku is correct. You've been learning Shas enough. Usually in Masechta Nazir we say Tiboi, because Lashon Nedarim and Lashon Nazir Mishuna we say Tiboi. But here we're going to say Teiku, but we'll still be Mishuna because we're going to say Lo Yadinon Teiku. We're going to say introduce that Teiku with Lo Yadinon. So we're going to have a few interesting shilas. Okay, let's go through the shilas now. Boy, mace bekli. The mace is in a kli. The piece of mace is in a kli. The kli now is it sheretz? Why does he say mace? Yeah, very good. Shema, guys, you should have asked me. Didn't you tell me that Rabbi Stern that right? It's only by tumish by sheretz, no. Right? So I say mace bekli. Take a look at the goin, the grua bays. What does he say? Tzarech Leima. What is base? Tzarech Leima what? Sheretz. Ah, okay, it's good. Right? That doesn't make any sense otherwise, right? You just told me the shaila, yeah? Very good. Oh, so now, you have this sheretz is in the kli. Now, and it's the kli is floating. How do you view it? Do you go after the kli, and therefore the sheretz is what? Is stagnant and it's tamei, or you go after the water and it's floating and it'll be tar. So that's the first shaila. Boy, Rechama says Rechama the following shaila: sheretz bekli tzaf al pnei hamayim mahu basa kli aslina. And if you go after the kli, it's going to be tamei because the sheretz is stagnant. Or basa maya, change the gersa. Or basa maya aslina. We go after the water and it will be tar. Now. Imtim Salema Basa Kliaz Linon, and it's Tameh, guys. Imtim Salema Basa Kliaz Linon, and it's Tameh. Then you have Sheretz Al Gabe Sheretz Mahu. Okay. Kivin, now here you have to be, it should be mace, it should be Sheretz Al Gabe mace. It should be Sheretz Al Gabe mace, I bet. What does the dollar say? Huh? Good? So you have to Sheretz Al Gabe mace. So now you have the mace is floating in the water. The mace is floating in the water, and the sheretz is on top of the mace. Good. So usually, this is going if you go bust the kli mahu. Even the high tumas erev, the sheretz only time to the evening. The high tumas shiva, and the mace will be tamya for 7 days. Command them after tuma bekli damya. Do we say that the sheretz, the tuma, is in a kli, and therefore it'll be metamayu? Idil matuma smichtahi. It's one shtik tuma, and therefore what we'll view it as floating, and therefore what it'll be what tar. Therefore what it will be tar. How because
of the sheretz, not because of the mace that's floating.
Again, we'll say the mace is not you have to say the suffix is that he touched the sheretz, not he touched the mace. But the question is the mace considered like a part of the sheretz, and then it's considered floating or not? That's really the shaila. All these shailas is how do you view it, right? So. If you have this, if you go after the water in this case and it's floating, right? If you go after the case of the mace that it's floating in the water, then it'll be tar.
What makes it like a kli though?
Again, if you view it like this, the kli really doesn't make a difference. Is it connected to the water or not? Do we view it as floating or not? If we view the thing as a barrier, we'll view it as what as not floating. If we don't view it as a barrier, we'll view it as flowing. So by the first case, it was a kli that was a barrier. By the second case, it's a mace that's a barrier. In other words, and there's the halakhic of the fact that they sear component take away that barrier that will go ahead and say it's floating. That's really what it is, Avi. Okay, now the third question. What's the third question? If you're going to tell me it's like in a kli and it's floating, right? What's the hay? I can't see this. Havis and v'chein lessa. Okay. Sheretz agabi nevela. Sheretz agabi nevela. The nevela it's suffer. So the sheretz in top of now. What's the difference over here? They have the same halacha. Kivin the travayu tumas erev. By Meis Mom was tumas shiva. Here it's tumas erev. Inan tumin simichtehi, and therefore it's not a barrier and it'll be soft. Idilma haikazayis vaikadacha. Since they have a different shear, a sheretz is the shear of a cha'acha and a veil is shear kazayis, right? Then maybe it's considered a barrier, and therefore why it's considered tamei. Sheretz agabe sheretz nahu. What about sheretz and gana sheretz nahu? Hani vadei ninu, and therefore it shouldn't be a barrier, and therefore it should be what floating, and it should be tahar. Idilma kivin the mifsaki me'adadei. Since they're mafsik, the bottom line is loy, and it's not considered in the water. Bimtim sleim sheretz agabe sheretz. If you're going to tell me that what sheretz, if you're going to tell me sheretz on top of sheretz, that you'll tell me that it's what a barrier. Imtim sleim what sheretz agabe sheretz. Keeping the miskim adad command the mancha b'klidami. If you're going to tell me that what it's like a kli and it's tamei, sheretz agabe nevela. Sheni mucha mahu. And the vela, in other words, if sheretz agabe sheretz, guys, many want to follow. Halachically, they're the same. So what we'll say that it's a barrier, it's a physical barrier. So what about if it's a mashka? What about it's a food that's a mashka that's tamei? And the vela that got melted. So they're both tumas erev, and it's a liquid, so it's not a barrier. So it says the Gemara. What do we say? Sheretz agabe nevela sheni mucha mahu. Kivin the nimucha have. Since it's nimucha, it is melted. Mashka, it's a mashka, and therefore what? Since it's a mashka, the sheretz is considered what? The sheretz is considered floating, right? Or do we say no, that the veil is an eichel, and therefore it's a different halacha? Right? And therefore it's a barrier. Therefore it's a barrier. If it's a mashka, then it's considered the water. If it's part of the water, it's not a barrier. Well, no, since halachically it has a lach of tumas eichel, it's a barrier. Again, guys, the question is it in the water or not in the water? How do we view it? That we're going from physical to halacha and back to halacha and physical. We're moving both, right? So we move the halacha because they're both tumas erev. We move the physical because it's not a sheretz, it's not a solid. It's what it's a liquid. Good, that's what we're doing. Then Tim Sulaim with the uchlahu, you're going to tell me it's an eichel and therefore it's a barrier. Sheretz agabe shichva zera mahu. What about sheretz agabe shichva zera? You'll tell me by shichva zera that it's a mashka, but you'll say it's not an eichel. Or do we say no? Keeping the misakra, since it's oika, how will they kill ochla? It's like an eichel. Sheretz agabe mechatos. What about sheretz agabe mechatos? The gross takes it out. How you would anyway? It's mechatos tzafna agabe mayim mahu, and what's the Gemara answers shailuat lo yadinon loshen the serious meshuna. The teku, all these shilas would be what a teku. Okay, now this whole din of tumas hatohoim was stated where the person was no longer tamei. The person was cleansed from tumah, and they did the giluach, right? They cut the hair. If the person was vaday tamei tumas meis, we're not going to say, oh, 1 second, you tamei tumas meis, and you chazaka that you tamei tumas meis, you don't get out of it because of tumas hatohoim. However, the Gemara, it's not so. It's not so pasha. Amar Rav Nuna says Rav Nuna. Nazir ba'isa Pesach. Again, we said tumas hatohoim regarding those two places. By Nazir ba'isa Pesach, that's what we said. What tumas hatohoim. So Nazir ba'isa Pesach shaholchu bekeves hatohoim b'shvi shelahem. So in other words, both of them, the Nazir and the Isa Pesach, both of them standard now to go ahead and be tar. A Nazir that was tamei, 7 days were counted. Yes, Isa Pesach, 7th day, and he's going to make his carbon Pesach, and they tell him, by the way, you went over to kever tahoim, right? They tell him the halacha is tahirin. the Nazir, it's the Nazir, it's not Saisa as Naziris, and I said Pesach can bring his carbon Pesach. My timer, Dlealimi Tumas at Haim Limitzer. Tumas at Haim cannot be Saisa. Okay, now, but the it's fair. Massive Ravi asked him my Mishnah. What is saying my Mishnah? Yored L'Tar Mi Tumas Mace. This was our Mishnah, guys. If he goes down to cleanse himself from Tumas Mace, Yored, he goes down. The Tar Mi Tumas Mace, Tame, right? If the Nazir went down, he was wanted to cleanse himself from Tumas Mace, and he found out he was Tame from Tumas Dahaim, then what? He's Tame. Why? Shecheskas Tame Tame. The Chazak of Tame is Tame. Shecheskas Tar Tar. So L'Chayra, Rav is asking Rav Amnuna, how could you tell me that on the Shvi Shaloi that the Tahar, you just told me our Mishnah says what? If you're a Cheskas Tame, is Tame. Guys, what's the answer? Rav Amnuna was speaking after they went through the process, right? So Amalei, Rav Amnuna said back to Rava, Moedin L'cha bin Nazir shemechusat tiglachas. I'm moeded to you by the Nazir that was tummy to Masat Haim on the seventh day before he took his haircut, before that he'd be tummy. Because since he's missing his tiglachas, he's the cheskas of a Nazir tummy. And we don't say the kula of Tumasat Haim. But what I said, my case is speaking on the day 7 after they went through the process. So the chazaka is one of Tyra. He was spritzed already 3 and 7. Spritz 3 and 7, has his haircut. He's a cheskas Tyra. Why do you bring him a question from our Mishnah? Our Mishnah is discussing where he didn't cleanse up yet. So that's what Rav Amnuni answered Rava. Amalei Rava, guys, believe it or not, Rava's Maida. The Rava says, you're right. Says Amalei Rava, Af anu Madina l'chabayis Pesach le'mechusav le'klom. Even the person who went to bring his Pesach, that he doesn't have to take a haircut, if he's telling you Tumas at the home, once he went through the spritz of day 3 and day 7, he doesn't have to worry at all. Oisa Pesach is going to bring his Pesach. He walks over that. Again, he doesn't have to do anything. Forget it. He's not talking about, he wasn't Tomei in the first place. In other words, obviously, Oisa Pesach, of course, he is minded to him that Tumas at the home is a kula. Because his chazaka was Tyra all along. He's not coming from any sense of Tumah whatsoever. Why do you say it's a cheskas tahira? Even the one he got, he needs hair of shemesh once he went to the mikvah. So Rabbi told Abaya, Shimsha mimela arva. The shemesh going down is going to happen mimela, and it's not considered mechus maisa, and therefore it's considered becheskas tahira. In other words, a full yom is halachically he's not able to eat truma until he cleanses up. But in terms of what you can do to be considered out of your chazaka, you're out of your chazaka, right? You're out of your chazaka. You're there because you're not missing a ma'isa. So, and Abaya had debate. Even Abaya had chavata. Now, this Gemara will be glad geschmack as anything. Let's go. Okay, let's go. Glad geschmack. We have a halacha that when we say tumas at the home is only a person is a cheskas tahira. If a person is cheskas tuma, we don't say tumas at the home. Says Ramnuna. So therefore, a person, a nazir that was tamei, who got it together, waited 7 days, he was spritzed 3 and 7, had his taglachas, and now he wants to go ahead and start again. They tell him, you were telling me to Masat Haim, you're good. Chazaka? Yeah. When you didn't go ahead and take your haircut, and therefore you were missing a maisa, then in Achinami, you're tummy. We won't say the Tumas at the Haim is gonna the cool of Tumas at the Haim. We will say it after you took your haircut, because you're not missing a Maisa. Frag the Baya Herb Shemesh, you're missing a Maisa. Herb Shemesh is not a Maisa. The mail of the sun sets. You don't do anything. Good? You got it. Beautiful. No. And even a Baya had Charot about his Kasha. Now, everything will be great. Now the Gemara brings in and digresses a difficult Gemara from Masechtas Nida, and at the end, we just need one little line to show that Abaya was what was. But since it's Nazir, we have to finish off with a Geschmack. Okay? Guys, listen up. Akdama. You know. A woman as a yoledes, guys, gives birth to a baby boy. Any blood she sees for 7 days is dam tuma. Any blood she sees for the next 33 days, up to day 40 after she gives birth, is dam tahira. Then on day 41, she brings her carbon yoledes, her birds, and it's not mechusik kippurim anymore. Good. She knows she is at full yoim for a lengthy period of time. It's full yoim from day. If she goes to the mikvah on day 7 to after day 7 to 41. What about a female? She gives birth to a female. Double. 14 days of tumah, 66 days of tyra. Brings the carbon in day 81. 81. Good. So now, when is it considered a leda? When's a child, a nafel considered a leda? It's after 40 days. 40 days. You're thinking about pidyon b'char. A leda is after 40 days. 40 days. 40 days. What lie to you? Okay. You can check me up on it. If I'm wrong, I'm wrong. I'll gladly admit it. So watch this. Halacha like this. A woman, she gives birth. Yeah. She gives birth. And on day 8, and then on day 81, she miscarries. Right? She miscarries. I'm saying, does she have to be 2 karbanos or 1 carbon? Yeah, she had a second birth. Again, 40 days. In 80 days, you can fit two kids in there, right?
She was tummy though.
She never met a husband. She's mutter. Stam Tyra. She's only tummy for the 14 days. 66 days, she can live with her husband. That time is Dam Tyra. So if she would give birth, guys, within the 80 days, on day 81, she kills 2 birds with 1 stone. She brings 1 set, and that takes care of both birds. Both birth. Well, she brings birds, but she takes care of the births. Good? Good. That's the din. What happens if she gives birth on day 81? She'd have to bring 2 separate. She'd have to bring 2 separate. In other words, on day 81, she could bring for the previous one, or when she gets cleans up, but she has to bring 2 separate ones. One for the first birth and one for the nafel born on 81. Good? What about the following? She gives birth normally. She has a child, right? She has a child, and then on day 64 she's mapo. Good. She miscarries day 64. So now she's mechuyev how many karbanos? 2. Because she can't go ahead. Actually, she's mechayev 1. She's mechayev 1 carbon, right? Because since the hapala took place before day 80, since the hapala took place before day 80, you're good. Again, just keep that in mind. As long as the birth took 2 births took place within that 80 days from the first birth, it's one set of karbanos does the job. Now, what happens if 64 days later, after 64, she has another mapala? Day 128. So it's within 80 days of the second one, but it's past 80 days of the first one. Does she have to bring 2 because of the first one, or can she go ahead and bring 1 for all 3? You got it?
Did she bring 1 already?
She couldn't bring anything yet because she was in a constant state of starting, stopping. The question is when she brings it, right? Again, when she brings it, in a lot of dafka, you have to bring it before you can eat kachim, but you don't have to bring it dafka that day. So here again, you have 1, 2, and 3. Normally, 1 and 2 within 80 days, you only have to bring 1 carbon. Normally, after 80 days, you got to bring 2 karbanos. Here you have both. You have 1, 2, and 3. 3 is outside 80 for 1, but it's inside 80 for 2. Can you now give it 1 set for all 3? And the answer is you could. And some way Abaye is going to be moida that what? But Herav Shemesh is not a problem. Okay, so you get this whole difficult case for 1 little line. Okay, so let's see the Gemara. Geschmack. Says the Gemara. And even Abaye, v'afa Abaye hadabei, and even Abaye had charata. He had charata, the Tanya. Okay, what does it say? Yom Melos Tavi. If she's mapel on the day of the Tyra, right? Then Tavi, she has to bring a separate carbon. Toich Melois loy Tavi. But if she gave birth within Melois, within the 80 days, the 80 days, then she doesn't. Okay? Yachal loy Tavi aleida shel ifnei Melois. Aval Tavi aleida shel acham Melois v'tipata b'shneihem. I might think that what? She does not bring she can't bring the case that I just told you, right? I might think that what she can't bring a separate. You don't bring a separate carbon on the day later that took place before Malois. I will tell you later shall achem Malois for the potter b'shnayim. Okay. Tamid loymar uve Malois made the hira lebener lebas tavi biyom Malos tavi talk Malos lo tavi. As long as you talk Malos, you're going to bring guys. You're talk Malos constantly. Second is Malois first, and 3 is Malois second. Amrav Kahana. So now it's a little funny. It's let's be gutters like Taisus guys. But Amarava, Amrav Kahana, Haina Taima. What's the reason? In other words, when you say guys shiny hacha, it sounds like a teretz. Guys, Amrav Kahana, shiny hacha, right? It's different over here. You didn't ask a kasha to say shiny hacha. You said a statement. So Taisus is gairis, the Amar Rav Kahana, Hainu Taima. What's the reason why? What's the reason why 3 can be Yaitza 1, even though it's past 80? What's the reason? The Mechasra carbon, because you were missing the carbon. Rav Kahana is explaining, since you were missing the carbon, right? Therefore, since you're missing the carbon, you couldn't possibly bring a carbon. You were constantly tamei. Since you couldn't possibly bring a carbon, you can't say that number 3 shouldn't count for number 1. That's the explanation he's giving. So says, and just be goyrus, guys, not shiny hacha. The Omer of Kahana, Hainu time the mechusu carbon. Now, kasha hasanami mechusu herav shemesh. You're still missing the ma'aser herav shemesh, right? Amalei Abaya, Shim Shim Mela Arva. Says Abaya, the Shemesh. That's it. That's the whole reason you put in that wine. Are you Mechusam? No, you're not Mechusam Maisa. Okay. Anyway, so tonight we had Tumas Safa. We came back to Tumas at the home. We finished it off with the dinner of Yoledes and the dinner of Malois, Sugya Rucha, and Masechta Nida. And Bez Hashem, tomorrow we will get into some more interesting Tumah halachas as we limp our way to the finish line in Masechta Nazir. Have a good evening.